West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer.
Vice President Harris, it looks like, has closed the gap or taken the lead over Donald Trump in every swing state, according to the latest Bloomberg and Morning Consult poll. The new numbers show competitive races in all 7 battleground states among registered voters. In Arizona, Harris now leads by 2 points after Trump led President Joe Biden by 3 points there in a survey that was taken earlier this month. In Georgia, the polls show that the race is tied after Trump led by a single point in the previous survey. In Michigan, Harris now leads Trump by 11 points. That's double digits, a 6-point improvement on Biden's previous numbers. In Nevada, Harris has erased a 3-point lead for Trump and turned that into a 2-point lead of her own. She also trails by just 2 points in North Carolina. She's also cut Trump's lead from 7 points to 4 points in Pennsylvania. And in Wisconsin, the poll shows Harris leading by 2 points after Biden led there by 3 points previously. We should note that with the exception of Michigan, every state's result is within the margin of error. Harris's lead in Michigan also varies from other polls, by the way, that have been taken since Biden exited the race, but they are kind of extraordinary numbers and show a big swift pretty fast. Those numbers come as Vice President Harris herself held a rally last night in Atlanta, drawing a very energetic crowd of some 10,000 people. She laid out the contrast between her and Donald Trump, once again presenting this election as a choice between a prosecutor and a felon. Harris also attacked the former president on border security and called him out for flip-flopping on the next presidential debate.
Our administration worked on the most significant border security bill in decades. Some of the most conservative Republicans in Washington, D.C. supported the bill. Even the Border Patrol endorsed it. It was all set to pass. But at the last minute, Trump directed his allies in the Senate to vote it down. Right. He tanked the bipartisan deal because he thought it would help him win an election. Which goes to show Donald Trump does not care about border security. He only cares about himself. So here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the border security bill that Donald Trump killed, and I will sign it into law and show Donald Trump what real leadership looks like. So last week, you may have seen, he pulled out of the debate in September he had previously agreed to. Here's the funny thing about that. so he won't debate. But he and his running mate sure seem to have a lot to say about me. And by the way, don't you find some of their stuff to just be plain weird? Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say, say it to my face.
So, Claire McCaskill, a lot to get through here from what we saw from the vice president last night. First, it was striking. The border immigration is perceived as perhaps one of her biggest weaknesses. She went right there, right at the top of that rally. She addressed it head on, tried to flip it on Trump for his efforts to kill that bipartisan bill. And as we'll show you a little later in the show, she's got an ad on this as well. They're dueling ads. Trump has one attacking her. She's got one defending herself on this issue. The signature moment from that is going to be the say it to my face, about the debate, sort of goading Trump to meet her in September. But I'm also just struck by the feel of last night. That crowd was huge. It was raucous. The vice president is clearly having fun on the stage. An unthinkable scene for Democrats 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it is a remarkable thing that we are witnessing. This is a woman who's been underestimated by the chattering class, by people who don't know her well, people who assumed she wasn't ready to take on this kind of campaign in this way. And I think if we watch that speech last night, what struck me so much, I don't think people realize how hard it is when you're constantly interrupted with a lot of emotional outbursts of a crowd, and how you pause and allow that emotion to build, and how you build off of that emotion for a crescendo. Really, that was a very well done set of remarks last night. And people really don't realize how difficult that is, to do it with confidence, with a smile on her face. That's the biggest contrast in this campaign now, Jonathan, is that the Democrats are having fun, and it's about joy and opportunity and freedom. And the other side is about, cat ladies and electrocuting boats and the stuff that most Americans are just going, well, that doesn't really move me.
Yeah, and the weird is the word that Democrats have fixated on the last 10 days, but it's really dark. It's a dark image. It's a dark image of America that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are putting forward. And it was a real contrast from last night. And Aaron Haynes, you were there. You covered that rally last night in Atlanta. Tell us a little bit more about what it felt like there, how the crowd responded to her, as this is... The general election is in such a different place, and Vice President Harris's rollout here continues to be really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, what you saw on the screen was exactly what it felt like in that arena. I mean, the mood, the best way I could describe it was festive, and it was even in leading up to that electrifying 27-minute or so speech that the vice president gave. You had a parade of rock stars, political and entertainers, taking the stage and really firing up a crowd that didn't really need much firing up. You had a DJ in the arena. They were dancing, for the 3 hours leading up to when she appeared on stage. And then you also had people like, Stacey Abrams, who is certainly still a hero in Georgia. She made her first appearance for the vice president, who is now the presumptive Democratic nominee, on stage. You had Senators John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock make a rare joint appearance on stage together, at this rally. They don't often do that. Harkening back to that historic 2020 election for them as well. Then you had Megan Thee Stallion, who definitely had this crowd fired up, and rapper Quavo from Migos, who then introduces the vice president, talking about their working relationship to address gun violence. So you had all these people coming out, really keeping this energy and enthusiasm going into week 2 of Harris's campaign, as she is really the de facto Democratic nominee. This is energy that I saw in Georgia in 2020, frankly. So, I don't know if they can keep the same energy up for the next 98 days. That's something like 14 weeks from now. But if they can, Georgia certainly seems to be definitely back in play for Democrats.
Yeah, the energy there last night, I mean, crazy. The money there also pouring in as well. Sam, I don't know if you've got, if you need a little bit more money, but I see that Amazon is not yet selling Say It To My Face t-shirts, so there's a business opportunity for you. I'm sure they pay you a lot of money to do way too early. Every morning you do it brilliantly, but if you need a little bit more Say It To My Face t-shirts have to be sold, I reckon. Look, these polls, more seriously, what do you make of this Bloomberg poll, this kind of enormous shift that we've seen? I haven't seen a shift like this during this campaign, this rapid and this distinctive, particularly that Michigan number. What are you making of that Bloomberg poll? Is this an outlier, or is this a reflection of where things are headed for Democrats?
Do you want me to start with the serious stuff, or can I play off of the Amazon t-shirt business idea?
Go on.
Okay, because I hadn't thought about the t-shirt business idea, but I look into it.
Yeah,
not
it's
necessarily
no-brainer.
my forte. Also, Claire made a very valid point about constantly being interrupted. I know it. I've worked with Jonathan Lemire. It is a problem. It's hard to speak when that happens. As for the polls, look, I don't put my stock in any one set of polls individually. I think there's some numbers there that, frankly, are head-scratching. Plus 11 in Michigan. I mean, come on. That's not going to be the case. Also, -4 in Pennsylvania, I don't think that's going to be the case either. But if you look at trends, I think that's where you have to put your money, right? And the trends all point to the same thing, which is that Harris has gained substantially relative to what we expect in an election like this over the past 2 weeks. I mean, we are talking about 2, 3, 4 points across the board in the states and nationally. And I think it's just manifested in the ways that we saw at Atlanta last night. Democratic enthusiasm, which had been so bad for so long, suddenly gets, erupted out of this bottleneck. And you're seeing it with crowds. You're seeing it with poll results. You're seeing it with fundraising. I think she's made up a huge amount just on that alone. The question is, can she sustain it, build on it, and then also keep in that coalition the sort of independents, the older voters that Biden did have in his back pocket? Can she do that and create that winning coalition? And that's where the next 3 weeks, I think, are going to be critical.
It is Wednesday, the 31st of July of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl. And of course, she has been ailing, and she's sleeping in at the moment, so we will be seating you directly for our especially special, daily special, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? That's right. Well, it's egg delicious. And I'll tell you why. Because we make a very creamy and velvety hollandaise sauce with just the right amount of tang. So there you go. And that tang's there so it can be, mellowed out by the yolk. And I know some people don't like runny yolks, but hey, it ain't a Benedict unless it's runny. Also, we always like to make veiled references to the movie Beckett because, we can, and we do. So how are you on this morning? Let me give you another update on Little Precious. She goes in, of course, today for her weekly IV drip, and I need to speak with Dr. Dickey about pain regimen. We did mention it somewhat briefly on our last visit last week, and but she was doing pretty good on just the prednisone until, about Saturday night is when she started, Saturday evening, when I noticed that she started, it just looked like she was in pain, and she began to have that waver on her back haunches, almost walking like a drunken sailor, but then she wouldn't. And so, she's my little Precious, and I worry so about her, especially since what we're doing essentially is end-of-life care. And when these things happen, of course, it's the message like, hey, it's end of life. Love her while you can. I keep saying that, and I will continue to say it until we no longer have her. But she's a confusing little gal. She climbed down. Well, I won't let her climb down off my bed. So she slept on my bed for a bit last night. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, I felt her moving around. And she's been moving around gingerly. So I let her down. She didn't have to go to the bathroom or anything like that. I did help her, though, yesterday do that a couple of times, and she was fine. I mean, she walked back up on the walkway. I just didn't want her to climb up and down our little steps. So I let her down off the bed last night about 1 o'clock, and thoroughly expecting her to just be sleeping right next to the bed or under it, which is what she likes to do. But no, she went all the way to the back family room area that I have that goes out to the garden, and decided to climb down not 1 step but 3 to go sleep on a rug and then on Gunner's big pillow. And that was good. Let her be comfortable, you know. And she was kind of splayed out, which is good because I think it took some pressure off of her back haunches and spinal column, because I'm sure that's where the discomfort is coming from. The inflammation is built up, apparently, enough that, well, she's in discomfort. It's not pain. So I need to speak with Dr. Dickey today about, the prednisone isn't really pain medicine, but has been taking the inflammation down. But I think she needs something a little bit more for pain now. Okay, yes. So sorry that I'm so obsessed about giving you these updates, but well, I don't know. It could be days, could be weeks. Maybe it's days. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm hoping it's weeks, months, etc. Okay, well, Madam Vice President had a rally. Shoo-wee. Yeah. And you know what's going to happen. The guys over there at NRO, Brian York and all those weird skulls, they're going to tell us. They're going to tell us how terrible it is that there's all this terrible. Look what they've done to our music. Yeah. Our music, meaning like we don't have a Oompa Oompa Sousa band anymore. All right, Brian. Okay. Well, I actually just responded to Brian York when he said that this whole like weird meme is like, it's just petering away. Petering away. I like that. And I just said, say to my face, weirdo. I actually am enjoying that when I continue to get the, baby eating commie or pedo baby eating commie. I'm trying to remember what position that whole phrase comes in, but it's all the same. But when I get called the race baiting pedo baby eating commie, I like just simply responding with weirdo. And when you're doing it writing is fun, but I like to do the little inflections in my voice each time I say it and write it. Weirdo. Change it around. And we had the usual suspect who always likes to, around this time of year, is getting close to kids getting prepped for school. So he's got to come out there and talk about how homeschooling and private schools, and we need vouchers for all of that. And your government school is failing, so let's make sure it fails even more. Of course, we know what this is about. It's all a small part of a larger gambit, and that's to destroy multicultural democracy. And the reason we have a successful had because we're an experiment. We've had so far a fairly successful multicultural democracy is because of small things like public education. Okay? Let's be clear about that. It was intended by our founding fathers originally. But they don't care about that. They have a larger battle to battle. And that is, well, getting rid of the stupid representative democracy so I guess they can make money. Jeez. Okay, I mean, if you're going to be a protection racket, you got to think about who you're protecting a little bit too, right? Idiots. Because that's all that these guys, MAGA and all of that, they're a bunch of mobsters. They think like mobsters. They think that everybody thinks like them because they're mobsters. So everybody else is mobsters. So you got to be a mobster. An endless cycle, I guess. They can't believe that anyone would do anything out of the kindness of their heart. It's always transactional with them. And if it's always transactional with them, it's transactional with us. Yeah, well. I guess I get on my high horse and vent here. I apologize. But regardless, just had the usual tete-a-tete because the guy constantly just spams the same idiocy over and over and over, and then he responds in these long, just I don't know, it's gish gallop is really what it is. All right. But if anyone responds counter to this fellow or whatever, well, then you get an onslaught of, look, I know that there's a lot of homeschool moms around here. That's great. But let's be clear. The reason that they think that homeschool can work is because they're going to yank women out of the workforce, make them barefoot and pregnant in baby factories, and you teach them the 3 R's. And that's all we want them to learn. Because I'm already getting this BS from this guy of well, people of the strays don't need to know anything about Descartes. He didn't say Descartes. And I'm of the mind of, why not? Well, it shouldn't be required. And I'm why not? They just want child labor, the cheapest labor they can find, cogs in the machine that can be replaced, and they're telling me that we can't call them weird. Well, they're not really saying it yet because they haven't gotten what to say about it from Heritage Foundation Federalist Society. What's wrong here? Basically, the Coke Industries, which I must tell you, they actually have a very strong influence in this part of Oregon because they own some of the largest mills. And by owning the largest mills, it means that you bought up the smaller mills and made them go broke. But who gets blamed for that? Yeah, stupid, dirty hippies who are trying to save the spotted owl. All right. They found out how easy and malleable the brains around Southern Oregon were. I got to tell you, Grants Pass was a sundown town up to 1975. Okay? Cottonmouth and other groups of our ilk refused to play there because of that. Played a lot in Ashland. Loved Ashland. But Grants Pass, you had to stay away from Grants Pass. And also because, even though they said in 75, we're not a sundown town anymore. Yeah, well, residual effects resonated the same at this time right now. Just be clear. Okay. So I am still waiting for someone to refute or at least say in the affirmative that, yes, indeed, we're trying to get rid of multicultural democracy, because once they say that, they expose themselves for the racist Nazi bigots they are. So for now, it's great calling them weird. I don't have to call them racist Nazi bigots. Weird is basically says it all. And it is weird. Because I need to remind folks, this guy, what does this guy do? Except spam this stuff over and over and over, which is really regurgitations from the Heritage Foundation. I actually presented a few facts and also brought in some of what they call the liberal media, which is basically anything that's not OAN, Fox, and Sinclair. Okay? Anything like that. Sputnik, yeah, that would be okay. Anything from Russia? Russia Today? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. ProPublica? Oh, that's commie. Lawfare. Anyway, which is kind of verboten for the liberals to do. I'm the resident liberal, by the way. So I just, so we got the resident liberal, and I just refer to this fellow as the resident weirdo. Knowing full well that there's a lot of weirdos who reside in this area. Just so you know. And they haven't quite got it yet. They haven't gotten the marching orders from Alec. Because they regurgitate the same BS over and over and over, but the weird accusation has really flummoxed them, and I gotta say, good. Because I get tired of using so many words. That's why I love haiku. I get tired of using so many words. Yeah, I have some manifestos sometimes to match the Gish Gallop that guy puts out. The idea is not to refute every single thing, but basically just call him weird. Because, he came out against a guy in town, a cake baker. He's going to make a skull cake for Halloween. I know I mentioned this. And basically said it offends, I guess it offends his Christianity or whatever. What will the kids think if they see this skull cake? Come on, man, it's Halloween. And I wanted to get into De los Muertos and then slip in the multicultural democracy thing and see where it went. But I'm holding back. You can't use all your punches at once. All right? You got to kind of hold back and use them strategically. I used to throw things just, like, well, I got this arsenal, I'm going to use it. Sometimes it's better to, hold back some of your sneaky punches. Don't show all your sneaky punches at once. It's like boxing poker. It is. Oh my gosh, I just looked at the time and I know that we should tell you what we have in store for you. Because it is a little bit of a read. And of course, as you know, you can always find the full articles by following my social media feed at Justice Putnam, and that will take you to the Daily Coast Diaries, in which I put the links and some other tidbits of info and, well, shall we say, small entertainment for your entertainment value and pleasure. Not value, but pleasure. Yeah. Anyway, as we begin here in the Bistro Cafe, because that's where we are, West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It's a salon. And we do have a speakeasy, but you have to get to the chef's table. That's why we go to the chef's table at the end, because we're on the way to the speakeasy. See how that works? Okay. If we had visuals, you'd be able to follow it, but we're radio. We hew to radio. At the top, that was a little blurb from MSNBC, and I was actually able to grab it. Sometimes they don't let you grab them. But Madam VP is now leading or close to Trump in every battleground state. And when they say close to Trump, they mean that the polls that they have been pretty much skewed towards Trump to begin with because of, internal manipulation. And even with that, she's not only threatening, she's got her foot and maybe even her knee on their neck. I like it. On the rest of the menu, Arizona voters will decide the fate of a Republican Metro Phoenix election official who pushed hard against MAGA election falsehoods. Oh, yeah. They always treat their own the worst. I'd fear for his life, and he does. Despite MAGA Attorney General Andrew Bailey's cruel efforts, a Missouri man was finally freed from prison after his murder conviction was overturned after 34 years behind bars. All right. And Georgia's largest school district won't teach a new AP course in African American Studies because of the MAGA-controlled State Department of Education's refusal to approve the class. They don't approve the class, the kids don't get credit. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a 2-year investigation in Greece has cleared the country's security agencies of involvement in an international spyware scandal that triggered sanctions by the United States. And an Australian police officer testified in an inquest about the 2022 ambush by Christian extremists in a rural area that left 2 constables dead. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Tucked into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And once again, a quick reminder, follow me at Justice Putnam for quick access to the show notes and links diaries on Daily Codes, in which you can find the full articles. And you can then peruse them at your leisure. This first offering is by Jacques Billiou, Gabriel Sandoval, and Sajal Govindaro. All team up at the Associated Press for this first offering. A critic of Arizona's voting operations has unseated the Maricopa County Recorder in a Republican primary. Elsewhere, races were undecided with thousands of ballots left to be counted statewide. The work continues today. Voters delivered victories to some front-runners in yesterday's primary election, namely former Phoenix television news anchor and gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake. Well, that's a nice way of referring to a batshit crazy Looney Tune. She defeated Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb in a Republican U.S. primary or Senate primary that headlined the election statewide and will face Democrat Ruben Gallego in November. Okay. This is the AP. They had 3 people working on this. And an editor, too. We shall continue. Primaries in 3 congressional races and 1 noteworthy state legislative race were abortion politics, or where abortion politics left a Republican candidate, were too early to call. State Representative Justice Heap of Mesa in Maricopa County seized on the first opportunity to unseat election officials who knocked down false claims about the 2020 and the 2022 elections. He defeated both Stephen Richer, the incumbent, and information technology professor Donald Hyatt in the GOP primary for Maricopa County Recorder. Well, that was an interesting race. Richer took office in early 2021 after unseating a Democratic incumbent. He drew criticism in some conservative circles for calling out former President Donald Trump and others for falsehoods about the 2020 election, which Joe Biden won in Arizona by 10,457 votes. Richer was later criticized by that Looney Tune Lake. I'll do the editing here, guys. Who claimed her defeat in the 2022 governor's race was due to election fraud. Even though her legal challenges were rejected by the courts, Lake continues to claim that Richer and other Maricopa County officials interfered in the election to prevent her from winning. Richer later filed a defamation lawsuit against Lake, saying he faced violent vitriol and other dire consequences because of lies spread by Lake, including death threats and the loss of friendships. Richer said he has done his best to defend the integrity of the election system in the face of falsehoods. He has worked to clean up voter rolls and has been on the winning side of lawsuits that challenge election results. Jim Salter and Heather Hollingsworth at the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A Missouri man was freed from prison yesterday, Tuesday, after his murder conviction was overturned after 34 years behind bars, despite the state attorney general's efforts to keep him there. Christopher Dunn was reunited with his wife Kira Dunn as he was officially released from the St. Louis City Jail last night. As his release drew imminent, he was driven by van from the state prison in Licking, Missouri to St. Louis, which is about 140 miles away. A St. Louis circuit judge overturned Dunn's murder conviction on July 22nd and ordered his immediate release, but Dunn remained imprisoned amid a chaotic process that began when Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey appealed to try to keep Dunn locked up. When asked about the delay since the judge's ruling, Dunn said, "It was our testing to hear the decision by the judge and then be prepared to leave on Wednesday," which is today, only to be brought back to prison. It was torture. Dunn's release marks the second time in recent weeks that a person was freed from prison, despite Bailey's appeals to keep them in custody after a murder conviction was overturned. At the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Georgia's largest school district announced yesterday, Tuesday, that it won't teach a new advanced placement course in African American Studies, saying the State Department of Education's refusal to approve the course means its students would be cheated out of credit for the difficulty of the work. The decision by the 183,000 student Gwinnett County District means political pressure on Superintendent Richard Woods is unlikely to cease. Woods attempted to compromise last week by saying local districts could draw state money to teach the AP material by labeling it as a lower-level introductory course. That came a day after Woods said districts would have to teach the course using only local tax money. Withholding state approval for this AP course sends the message that the contributions and experiences of African Americans are not worthy of academic study at the same level as other approved AP courses, Gwinnett County Superintendent Calvin Watts said in a statement. A spokesperson for Woods, of course, never responded, because when do they ever? The Atlanta, DeKalb County, and Cobb County school districts have all said they are offering the course in some high schools, but Gwinnett County is maybe the most influential in the state, with others often following the lead of a system that contains more than a tenth of all Georgia public school students. Well, let us now go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Swept Away. The makers of Movie Magic are about as attracted to big violent storms as cable TV is to sharks. The standalone sort of sequel to 1996's Twisters just slammed into theaters, complete with in-theater wind and raindrops if you catch it in 4D. At the helm is Lee Isaac Chung, known for the quiet and powerful Minari and notably not a certified action director, which might explain the more human touch here. Our protagonist is Kate Carter, Daisy Edgar Jones, a PhD meteorologist living in New York, who years earlier had a bad experience while storm chasing in hopes of being able to place a load of sodium polyacrylate into a tornado vortex in hopes of dissipating it, which is an actual but unproven theory. Anyway, her former partner Ravi talks her into coming back to Oklahoma to chase for a week during an outbreak, and where she might have the chance to try again with the chemical. While doing this, she meets YouTube tornado wrangler Tyler, heartthrob Glenn Powell, and yeah, Ravi and Tyler both kind of have the hots for her, but that doesn't become a distraction. Issues around storm chasing and the motivations behind the individuals and entities doing it are examined with surprising sophistication. Do these chasers find way too many storms? Sure. Is the scientific jargon always accurate? Well, it's better than most movies like this, but consultants or no, it does go a bit astray. And of course, the dramatic element that must be there is that sixth sense possessed by some characters that trump the data to heroic effect. As tornadoes are a mid-America phenomenon, so is Twisters, with its country music, rodeos, and wide-open spaces. See it for amazing effects and the Americana. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean. And there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Raising Expectations, Raising Hell. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. And that is the title of one of the books by Jane McAlevey, an educator known across the country and worldwide for her organizing acumen. McAlevey led successful campaigns with the AFL-CIO and the Service Employees International Union, and she spearheaded efforts on behalf of nursing home workers and taxi drivers and janitors, among others, as well as on behalf of immigrants' rights and tenants groups and climate activists. As for unions that fail their membership, she said, I teach workers to take over their unions and change them. McAlevey stressed that organizing employees involve more than the workplace. It's bigger than that, she said. Do your kids have a good school, a clean and safe park, affordable housing, transportation? Organizing is protected by fundamental constitutional rights to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble, to associate, to band together for the collective good. These ideas are foundational. As Benjamin Franklin purportedly said at the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we must all hang together, or most assuredly, we will all hang separately. McAlevey taught the skill of hanging together as workers and as communities. This April, facing unremitting cancer, she published an open letter saying, I have loved being in this world with you. This Civil Liberties Minute mourns the passing of Jane McAlevey, who passed in July at the age of 59.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. New York Republicans challenge a new voting law in state Supreme Court July 30th, allowing citizens to vote by mail during the state's early voting period. The law has been upheld in 2 lower courts. Governor Kathy Hochul signed the New York Early Mail Voting Act in 2023, effective last January, a law, not a constitutional amendment. It allows any eligible voter to apply for an early mail ballot with no excuse, subject to approval by the local Board of Elections. But the New York Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, stipulates a voter must suffer from illness or physical disability to vote by absentee. New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik and state and national Republicans sued, arguing that the Early Mail Voting Act was unconstitutional. The lower courts found that another section, Section 7, gives the legislature the authority to make election law and upheld the act. Quote, all elections by the citizens shall be by ballot or by such other method as may be prescribed by law, provided that secrecy in voting be preserved. Oral arguments in the case are heard July 30th, and a decision in the case will likely come quickly, given the state of New York is already receiving early mail ballot applications. We've linked to articles, the appellate court decision, and constitutional analysis at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1939. That was the day striking auto workers in Cleveland, Ohio, defended their picket lines in what is known as the Battle of East 140th Street. Members of UAW Local 45 at GM's Fisher Body Plant had been on strike for 3 weeks. They had joined striking GM workers at 12 plants throughout Michigan. They demanded a supplemental agreement granting skilled workers wage increases, overtime adjustments and seniority, and apprentice provisions. In Cleveland, strikers vowed to stop the scabbing and were mostly successful. Now, at the start of the morning shift, a scab attempted to plow through the picket lines at a high rate of speed. Strikers flooded the gates and brought the scab car to a virtual stop. As they attempted to convince him not to cross through, mounted police viciously charged and attacked the strikers. Police continued to shoot tear gas guns from behind plant gates. Soon, there were more than 5,000 picketers fighting with police as workers poured out from half a dozen nearby plants to support the strikers. For over 2 hours, workers showered strike-breaking forces with bricks, rocks, and paving blocks. They overturned scab cars and drove the police off the street and into the plant. Fighting broke out again in the afternoon when police tried to bring in more tear gas supplies. Strike leaders directed activities from an amplifier on the roof of a nearby restaurant. The next day, famed Prohibition crusader Eliot Ness, now Cleveland's director of public safety, enforced a 500-yard riot zone, banning all gatherings near the gates and limited picketers to 7 at each gate. Strikers began picketing the homes of known scabs and would ratify a new contract just days later. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. For those of you listening to the podcast, you won't know that we actually had to delay the weather and the final offerings in the at the chef's table for some emergency care for a little Precious, and she meaning that she needed some help and not able to get about on her own. So I had to take care of her and then get her to the vet's, where she will be for the rest of the day getting her IV drip. And now we are recording live weather from around the world, and we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 84 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs between 100 and 105, so much warmer than what we've had. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Sunny conditions throughout the day. Clear skies overnight with lows in the upper 60s. We like it cooler than that, of course. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then generally sunny tomorrow with highs around 105 to 110. Winds out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Let's hope it doesn't blow any wildfires around. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.93 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 40%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 75 degrees and sunny. Paris is 82 degrees and sunny. Paris is not only 82 degrees and sunny, but they have a heat advisory. Rome is 88 and clear, and they have a severe heat advisory. Looks like Kabul is 75 and clear. Hong Kong is 80 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 79 and partly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 51 degrees with light rain. San Francisco, California is 62 and mostly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 85 degrees and partly cloudy, and New York is 85 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, also with a heat advisory. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Derek Topoulos at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A 2-year investigation in Greece has cleared the country's security agencies of involvement in an international spyware scandal that triggered sanctions by the United States earlier this year. Supreme Court prosecutor Georgia Adelini said she found no evidence linking Greece's National Intelligence Service, the police force, or its anti-terrorism division to the use of predator spyware, which opposition groups allege was used against some government critics. The spyware targeted dozens of prominent individuals in Greece, including Nikos Androulakis, the current leader of a socialist party, the third largest in parliament. The investigation's findings drew an angry reaction from left-wing and center-left opposition parties in Greece, which accused the ruling conservatives of engineering a cover-up. Speaking in Parliament, and Androulakis said the investigation was a sham and demanded that lawmakers be shown full conclusions of the probe, detailed in a 300-page report that has not been made public. It is a shameful practice to sell this type of software to illiberal regimes, knowing that they are most likely to be used against human rights activists, against political opponents, and endangering the lives of thousands of people in third world countries, Androulakis said. In March, the U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions against 2 individuals and companies based in Greece, Ireland, Hungary, and North Macedonia, all connected to software developers called the Intellexa Consortium. The sanctions announcement said they were linked to the spyware that was being sold to authoritarian regimes around the world and being used to target U.S. citizens. The government said its opponents had baselessly conflated the use of spyware with legally authorized wiretaps carried out by Greece's National Intelligence Service. So glad they made that clear. Rod McGurk at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A police officer testified yesterday, Tuesday, that he did not know where bullets were coming from, as 2 colleagues were shot in an ambush by 3 Christian extremists on a rural Australian property 2 years ago. Constable Randall Kirk told a coroner's inquest he was also shot as he fled the property in the Wimbilla region of Queensland State on December 12, 2022, after his colleagues, Constable Matthew Arnold and Constable Rachel McCrow, had been killed. They were ambushed by brothers Gareth and Nathaniel Train and Gareth's wife Stacy Train, conspiracy theorists who hated the police. State Coroner Terry Ryan is investigating the circumstances of the violence that claimed 6 lives to determine, among other things, whether the Train's weapons were legally obtained and whether the slain police had been adequately trained and equipped. The Train couple lived on the property, and Nathaniel Train, who had previously been Stacy Train's husband and had 2 children with her, was visiting from another state. The property had several concealed shooting positions, and Gareth Train had been warned. that police would be visiting in response to a missing person report made by his younger brother's wife, who cannot be named for legal reasons. All 3 trains were shot dead by police later that day following a 6-hour siege. All 3 were photographed firing rifles at police armored vehicles and ignoring calls to surrender. A neighbor, Alan Dare, was also shot dead by one of the trains when he came to investigate the sounds of gunfire and smoke from a burning police car an hour after the initial ambush. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursday, so do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.